From the fantasy armchair, it is the Fantasy TyRant. Hey there, fellow fantasy football freaks. Welcome back to the fantasy armchair, and I'm home for the holidays. As you can see, I wasn't kidding. Christmas really threw up in here, all over my walls and shit. Yeah, I'm a festive dude, what can I say? But hey, whether you're festive or not, you gotta love kids, right? And you like this show. Otherwise, you'd be watching one of those boring assholes with a giant mic in front of the fucking face as they lull you to sleep. Fuck that shit. If you want to support this show while supporting underprivileged children, sign up for me today on Patreon or donate via PayPal, Venmo, Carrier Pigeon. I don't care how you do it. But to make it easier on yourself, I got the links down below in the description. No Carrier Pigeon option, sorry. And half of all your pledges this month go to Dawn Becker Children's Hospitals. Plus, you get an entry for every dollar you donate into my Grandprize giveaway, where you can win this signed DeAndre Swift jersey, yeah. Certificate of authenticity. I ain't fucking with you, it's real shit. And if you're short on the dough and you want to enter for free, then share this video or any future video on any social media platform with the hashtag TyRant Gang. Any place I don't normally call home, you put it up there, hashtag TyRant Gang. Take a screenshot, send that to me, you get an entry. If you do it on the Fantasy Football Edge page, you get 2 entries. Another way is if you go to superdraftpro.com/thefantasytyrant, sign up for any tier of their membership, even the free one, and you'll get entries to win this bad boy. Not only that, but you get to play DFS contests that are completely legal in all 50 states. The higher tier you're on, the more chances you get, and the more money you can win. Anyway, superdraftpro.com/thefantasytyrant. You get 5 entries for each level of tier you sign up for. And please, of course, as usual, hit like, hit subscribe, share with everyone you know. We're almost at 600 subs. Come on, let's do it. Anyway, enough bullshit. Let's get to it. Here it is, your benches and bumps, benches and bumps, benches and bumps. And my running back bump of the week goes to Josh Jacobs. Now here's a guy who's got an unfair bum rap because he was expected to be an RB1 when no one should have really expected him to be more than an RB2. And if you have the right expectations, he's been pretty damn good actually. Really, his only issue's been health, and that's not been too bad this season. When he's healthy, he's putting up solid numbers, especially this week in a plus matchup against the Chiefs, who just let Java Williams have his rookie breakout last week for nearly 30 fantasy points. The Chiefs are allowing the 12th most fantasy points to opposing running backs, and yeah, Jacobs didn't play too well against them a few weeks ago. But thanks to his shitty game by Captain Guyliner McBedshitter, or as some call him Derek Carr, game script screwed Jacobs on that one, limiting him to only 7 carries. I think he'll fare much better in this game. Both teams have a lot to play for right now, and they're division rivals. Jacobs has had double-digit fantasy points in every game that he started in, other than the aforementioned Kansas City game. And don't expect another dud against the Chiefs, because even if Carr gets Guyliner in his eye and shits the bed, I think Jacobs has a game closer than what he's been putting up recently. Closer to 20 fantasy points, at least 15. So give Jacobs a bump this week. Other running backs I like, Chuba Hubbard, or simply Chubbard, though that kind of makes him sound fat. Anyway, he's got the Dirty Birds of Atlanta, who give up the 5th most fantasy points to running backs and 12 touchdowns in 12 games to the position. Hubbard's gonna take back that lead running back role this week, and last time he had that role against the Falcons, he went off for 24 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown. Could have a similar game here, so bump him up to your flex or RB2 spot. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has had a tumultuous career so far, riddled with injury and low usage. But now he's healthy, he's getting touches, and he's starting to heat up. He's had double-digit fantasy points each week that he's been back from injury, and I expect a 15-plus point outing against the Raiders, who are the 3rd worst at defending fantasy running backs. Keep that fire burning and bump him up. Got a sleeper for you. Deonta Foreman has taken a backseat to Dontrell Hilliard in the conversation about which Titans running back to start. I think that's been a mistake, as Hilliard's been lucky with touchdowns. I think the luck changes this week against the current Pussycats of Duval, who have allowed 12 touchdowns to running backs this season, tied for 4th most in the league. And I think it's Foreman who gets the production instead of Hilliard. Last week, Foreman put up a respectable 109 yards on 19 carries. If he had a touchdown to that, that's a pretty damn good game. I could see him doing that here. If you need a spot start at running back, you could do worse than Foreman, so just start Foreman. Why would you want to do worse? That would be fucking dumb. So what about my benches? Well, I'm putting all the bullshit committee running backs on the pine this week. I'm talking about Bills, Seahawks, Niners, you name it. Now, a committee can be fantasy viable for both players if the committee's done right. These teams ain't doing it right. Less committee, more clusterfuck. Java Williams and Mel Gordon have pulled it off well. Hey, there's another bonus bump for you. I love them both this week. More Java than Gordon, but do what you need. And the situations like what the Browns and Titans have, that's more of complimentary backs than committee backs. But these three teams, Buffalo barely runs the ball anyway. They're all about the pass. And when they do run, you never know who's going to get the lion's share. If that even means a damn. Then you got the Seahawks revolving door of injuries. Now they're the latest team to try to resurrect Adrian Peterson's dead career. Penny seemed almost promising, and then, well, he shit out too. Travis Homer, though, has been used here and there, but hasn't really done too much. Same with DJ Dallas. It's all a big mess, and I want no part of it. And the 49ers, it's Jeff Wilson and Jermichael Hasty. And who knows who else? They might sign 3 guys between now and then. Start someone off the practice squad, maybe bring in the water boy, I don't know. Someone could have a 20-point game, yeah, but good luck trying to figure out who. None of the backs on any of these teams are worth the risk, especially with the playoffs just around the corner. You need to win now, so you need solid guys that can get you fantasy production. Not a time to blindly throw darts and hope you get a winner. I'd put the whole slew of them on your bench. Other running backs I'm benching, Devontae Freeman has been a surprise at times this season, but I think against the Browns, who are top 10 at defending running backs in fantasy, he could have an off week. He only managed 7 points against them a couple weeks ago, and this week he's got to face them in Cleveland. The doghouse is going to take this big dog to the dog pound. It's going to be a rough game for Freeman, so put him on your bench. No Carter, no Tevin, so it's time to fire up Ty, right? Wrong! With the Jets' offense as banged up as a Kardashian's twat, I think the Saints' top-rated defense against running backs will key in on Johnson and shut him down. Even as a spot start, I think there's better options out there. Leave Ty Johnson on your bench. And I've got a bust alert out for James Conner. It appears that my little baby boy Chase Edmonds will be making his long-awaited return, and if that isn't bad enough news for Conner owners, the Rams rank in the top 10 defending against running backs in fantasy. Conner could still vulture a touchdown, sure, but I expect him to have less of a workload this week. You may be starting him depending on what other options you have at running back, but do so with caution. Moving along to the wide receivers, and my wide receiver bump of the week goes to Mike Williams. Now, as we just found out, the guy doesn't have COVID. He was just a contact. He tested negative. He's vaxxed, so he's going to be back playing tomorrow. Keenan Allen, on the other hand, is going to be out. Yeah, I expect a little bit from Guyton, a little bit from Palmer, but for the most part, it's going to be Mike Williams taking the lion's share of Keenan Allen's targets. And the Giants are the 9th worst against wide receivers in fantasy. Yeah, you like that. Remember at the beginning of the season when 20 points was Mike Williams' floor? I think he's going to look about that good in this game. As the Chargers wide receiver 1, and he's got a great rapport with Justin Herbert. Yeah, he can put up over 20 points. James Bradbury better have his lidocaine ready because he's about to get burned all day long. Give Mike Williams the bump up this week. Other wide receivers are starting up. DK Metcalf was dealing with a mystery illness earlier this week. However, I still think he's suffering from "my QB is pissed at me-itis." Whatever's going on between Metcalf, the team, and Russ, it's been a boon for Tyler Lockett owners. And this week, he's facing the shitty-ass Texans D, so I see another big game for Lockett. Bump him up. Justin Fields is starting again for the Bears. That should be all I need to say for you to pull Darnell Mooney off the pine. Mooney is Fields' guy, and that's been made as clear as a Band Geek social calendar. He had over 15 fantasy points against Green Bay in Week 6, and I expect right around the same against Green Bay this week. Worth a bump. Got a sleeper here too, with both Corey Davis and Elijah Moore dealing with injuries, and the Saints D giving up top 5 numbers to wide receivers this season. Jamison Crowder could have a sneaky good game from the slot. Zach Wilson will have to throw a lot in this game, and he likes slots about as much as your grandma. Yeah, that one. With Davis on IR and Moore looking like a scratch too with a quad injury, Crowder could be the only game in town for Wilson, so if you need a fill-in at the flex, Jamison could be your guy. Play him in DFS at least. Now for the wide receivers I'm benching, I got a twofer for you. Hollywood Brown and Rashad Bateman. Cleveland Browns are right around the top 10 when it comes to defending against opposing wide receivers. And the play of these two guys hasn't exactly inspired you to want to start them lately. Bateman had a goose egg last week, and Brown has slipped from being a borderline wide receiver 1 to barely being flex-worthy. It's been Lamar with the running game and a little Mark Andrews thrown in there. Hollywood is up to no good, and I ain't taking the bait, man. Leave both these guys on your bench. Other wide receivers, I'm sitting down. Brandon Cooks plays best with Tyrant Taylor, but he's out and Davis Mills is back in. So if you're a Cooks owner, you smell trouble, don't you? The Seahawks D is giving up the 9th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, and Mills just likes to throw to random jamokes we've never heard of, as our fantasy squads suffer. So get ahead of that game and sit Cooks on your bench. Cortland Sutton just got paid, and I think that'll play more in the next season. The Broncos may just be packing it in, heating up their rookie running back, and hoping to land Russ Wilson or someone big at QB in free agency next season. I think Sutton's being saved for next year, and he's been all but shut down this season. Lions are middling against wide receivers, but Judy's getting most of the work in the passing game, so Sutton can just sit back and enjoy his payday on your bench. Bust alert. A lot of us picked up Russell Gage this week, and while I think in the long run that's going to be a valuable move, this week it could be disastrous. I feel like we're going to see a lot more Patterson. The Panthers D is shutting down wide receivers this season, ranking top 5 in defense against the position. In Week 8, a game in which he was the wide receiver 1 for the Falcons, dude wasn't even targeted. I think he gets a little work this week, but not enough to be fantasy viable in most leagues. There'll be better weeks ahead for Gage, but this week, hopefully, you've got better options. Now for the quarterbacks, and my quarterback bump of the week is Taysom Hill. I told everyone to start him in the Thursday game last week, and those of you who did were handsomely rewarded. I even predicted that he'd get 24 fantasy points, and yeah, he did. Nah, I ain't no psychic. And yeah, I'm pretty good at this game, but the reason why I knew is because that's what he was doing all last season when he was the starting quarterback for the Saints. Hill is solid for 20 to 25 fantasy points pretty much every game, rarely more, rarely less. And this week, he's facing up against the Jets, and these guys can be killed on the ground, and that's where Taysom Hill does a lot of his damage. Now Alvin Kamara will be back, but Hill didn't really pay him much mind last season when the two of them played together, so I'm not really afraid of that. I'd be more afraid as a Kamara owner. But you want about 24 points from your QB guaranteed? Yeah, you'll take that. So bump Taysom Hill up this week and for the rest of the season. Other QBs I'm bumping. Joe Burrow got the Russ Wilson treatment on his finger, but apparently not as bad. Thank fucking God. He's had some rough weeks on top of that, but he's feeling good, getting in some good reps in practice, and removed from the injury report. The Niners' defensive backs are banged up, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to QBs as it is. Teams are doubling Jamar Chase, but Higgins and Boyd are still out there. Burrow creates fantasy relevancy no matter who he's throwing to, so bump him up. Taylor Heineke gets the fantasy fiesta that is the Dallas D this week, and they're giving up the 7th most fantasy points to QBs on the season. This guy is matchup based only, but this happens to be a good divisional matchup. Not someone I'm starting over studs or nothing, but a good spot start this week. Give him a bump. And a sleeper here, trying to predict a game from Cam Newton is about as frustrating as figuring out what to get your dad for Christmas. If you somehow manage to get it right, the outcome is as awesome as the feeling you get for nailing it. I think Cam will be unwrapping loads of fantasy points this week against the Dirty Birds of Atlanta, who give up the 2nd most fantasy points to QBs on the season. Santa Cam will be gifting touchdowns to his offense all game, as well as running all over the field. So if you need a fill-in at the QB position this week, gift yourself some Cam Newton. So who am I sitting at QB this week? Well, I'm whipping out my big set of balls, because these grapefruits are telling you to sit none other than Tom Brady. Yeah, go ahead and scoff, but I got 2 words for you. Just watch. Brady's going to put up another 15-point or less game against the Bills this week. A defense who's made QBs harder to score with than a none, allowing the least fantasy points to opposing QBs this season. I hear a bunch of you saying, oh, but TyRant is QB12. He's not going to let us down. Yeah? Is that what you think? These guys held Mac Jones to under 1 fantasy point last week, for Christ's sake. Now, I ain't saying they're going to do Tom that bad. If you notice, Tom Brady's been on the downslope recently. He tends to hold it back a little bit in the second half of the season so he can let it all out during the playoffs. He had a great game last week against the Falcons, but the Dirty Birds of Atlanta sucked bird shit against the pass. But ain't no one scoring against the Bills. so I don't think Tom's gonna be quite so terrific in this one. If you got other options, leave Tom Brady on your bench.
Other QBs I'm sitting. Teddy Bridgewater has never really been a fantasy viable QB in 1 QB leagues this season. Even in plus matchups, he's barely ever hit the 20-point mark. On a per-game average, Teddy Bridgewater ranks outside the top 25 at his position. This week he's got a middling matchup against the Lions, but I'm not feeling a big game from Bridgewater. With Gordon likely coming back this week, watch the Broncos go to town with their running backs. The ground game gets to work in this game, so leave Bridgewater on your bench. Ryan Tannehill is the victim of a bad offensive line and a run-heavy game script. I called that in the beginning of the season when everyone else was anointing him a top 10 QB. I had a bet going on with some other so-called guru who tucked his tail and ran, watching me look so damn right about this guy week after week. Jacksonville's right around top 10 at defending against fantasy QBs. All of this equals Tannehill on your bench. Bust alert. Captain Guyliner McBedshitter has been very inconsistent this season. What am I saying? He's been this way every season. Matchup seems to make no difference for him. It's just completely random when he plays well or plays bad, but more often than not, he falls short of the 20-point mark, as he did when they faced KC last time. And this time, the Raiders are traveling to Arrowhead. I think there'll be a lot more rushing, and Carr is still without his main squeeze, Waller the baller. He'll be outside his comfort zone without his security blanket, so I'd go with other options this week if you can.
And finally, we've reached the tight ends, and my tight end bump of the week goes to Dawson Knox. I was all over this guy in the offseason before anyone else. I knew all about the bubbling bromance between Josh Allen and Dawson Knox. I saw a few sparks from this guy last season, and I've kept my eye on him ever since. This week, he's been putting it together and blowing it up as a top 5 tight end option each and every week, with his only real hiccups coming from injury. As far as I'm concerned, this guy's a stud, so I'm not going to be talking about him on this segment ever again. Just start him in your lineup and keep him there. And this week you should have even more confidence in him as he's facing the Bucs defense, who are giving up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. I think Josh Allen's going to be hucking the ball a lot, and once they get down into the red zone, Knox is the end zone threat. Dude already has 7 touchdowns in an injury-riddled season, so I say he gets somewhere between 5 and 6 catches for 50 to 70 yards and a touchdown at least. Now that's a solid-ass day for a tight end. Get it? Solid-ass tight end? No? You're not into it? Alright, whatever. If Knox will bump up this week anyway.
Other tight ends I like this week, Dalton Schultz has been so predictable and does exactly what you expect him to do. He's as dependable as a Ryan Tannehill turnover. Yeah, sorry, I love picking on that guy. But anyway, Dalton Schultz is another stud, and even with the Cowboys at full health, he still gets enough targets to be fantasy viable. Unless he takes a dump in this game, I'm also labeling him a stud from here on out. And against the crappy Washington D, I'll give him a bump this week. Alright, stop me when you heard this one. The Giants pass catchers are all banged up. Danny Dimes is out. Glennon is in. Glennon likes throwing to tight ends. With no one else available to catch the ball, Evan Ingram should have a nice game. The Chargers suck a monkey's ass at defending tight ends. Yeah, now that you're all screaming stop like a woman who can't take a 12-inch cock after all, you get the picture. Bump Ingram up. Got a sleeper here for you. No Logan Thomas, no problem. Back to Ricky Seals-Jones. The Washington team has made it very clear that they like throwing to the tight end, and I'm tired of hearing, well, what about Curtis Samuel? Yeah, well, even when healthy, he hasn't done shit. RSJ played well in Logan Thomas's stead, and he'll continue to do so, apparently, rest of the season. So snag him back up, start him up against the Cowboys, who allow the 11th most fantasy points to tight ends, and keep him in the rest of the year with matchups against Dallas and Philly the rest of the way.
Now for the benches, and at tight end, I'm benching Zach Ertz. All the pass catchers for Arizona are healthy now, including Chase Edmonds. All those little dinky-dunk passes, all the little checkdowns, and shit like that would normally go to Ertz are now going to be going back to Chase Edmonds. And Ertz's shoulder's still bothering him, so he might be holding it back anyway. I mean, he's going to play through the pain, but that could limit his production severely. With Sony mouths to feed, shoulder's still bothering him, and he's facing the Rams D. Yeah, that's 3 ways to say you better leave Ertz on your bench.
Other tight ends hitting the pine for me this week. Noah Fant is a guy I actually really like, and I was big on him this season. But with the full arsenal at the ready in the passing game, he could get lost in the mix. The Lions actually do a decent job defending against tight ends, probably because they give it up everywhere else. The Broncos aren't going to need Fant this week, and I suspect you won't either, so put him on your bench. Gerald Everett has made some leaps this year to fantasy viability, but with all the drama there in Seattle, I'm staying away until things get resolved. Dude fumbled twice last week. I doubt he gets trusted so much with the ball this week against the Texans, who are actually weak against the tight end, so, see, I'm not just a matchup whore. In this case, good matchup or not, I'm staying away until shit gets under control for the bitch pigeons. Leave Gerald Everett on your bench, and a bust alert goes out for Kyle Pitts. And this time, it's not just for the game, but for the season. I don't think he's going to be a bust for his career, but everyone expected him to be a top 5 tight end this season, and he hasn't even been a top 10 guy. Not sure why everyone was ready to anoint him a tight end god in his rookie season. I figured it would take a year or so to adjust to the NFL, and that's what we're seeing. The talent is there, no doubt. He just needs to develop. And against the Panthers this week, who hover around the top 10 at defending against fantasy tight ends, I don't see anything developing. If you have other options, use them.
So there you go, fantasy football freaks. There's the show. Yeah, I condensed it a little bit, tried to cut out some of the filler while still keeping things entertaining and informative. Hopefully you liked it. Let me know what you think in the comments. While you're down there, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, check out my Patreon, or donate via Venmo or PayPal or however you'd like. Half of all donations this month go to Dornbecker Children's Hospitals, and for every dollar you donate, you get another entry to win this signed Swift jersey. Hey, help me, help kids, help yourself. Why not? What are you doing? Do it now. Or if you can't afford it, get free entries by posting hashtag Tyrant Gang with my videos on any social media platform. Double the entries if you do it on the Fantasy Football Edge Facebook page. However you want to enter. Do it before December 25th. That's Christmas Day, duh. Anyway, thanks for watching the show. Hopefully it helped out. If you need more information or I didn't talk about the guys you needed me to talk about, come see me tomorrow morning for the Tinker Stinker Power Hour. I'll have more sleepers and deep dives and streaming defenses and kickers, weather report, injury updates, plus answers to your burning roster questions. This is a crucial week for you, so let me help you crush it. And together, we're going to the promised land of the fantasy playoffs. That's tomorrow morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, right here on the Fantasy Tyrant YouTube channel. Hey, it's the Tinker Stinker Power Hour. Until then, I'm out. Peace.